Assalamu alaikum, dear student. Hope you are doing well. Today I am going to take a class for the student of class 9-10. It's for chapter 4, bioenergetics, and our topic of the day is cellular respiration. At the end of the discussion, the students are expected to discuss the overall mechanism of cellular respiration, differentiate aerobic and anaerobic respiration, write the overall equation of cellular respiration, and can describe the stages of aerobic respiration. So before starting the lesson, we have to warm up some common things as like which law of thermodynamics describes how energy is conserved. That is laws of thermodynamics. First law, energy cannot be created nor destroyed, derived from the law of conservation of energy. Second law, energy cannot be converted without the loss of usable energy. Example, when consumers convert chemical energy into kinetic energy, some energy is lost as heat to the environment but not destroyed. What is ATP and how is used to create energy? ATP is the unit of cellular energy. ATP, the full name is adenosine triphosphate. Here we can see the adenine nitrogen base with a ribose sugar and triple phosphate group consists a ATP. It has usable energy stored in the phosphate tail. This phosphate tail stores usable energy and it releases energy when the bond between the second and third phosphate group is broken. So this bond, when broken, it releases energy. So how do we get energy from ATP? By breaking the high energy bonds between the last two phosphate in ATP. And what is the energy used for? Respiration supplies the energy for chemical change in cell division, germination, muscle contraction, and many other metabolic work of our body. So some basic things about cellular respiration. Cellular respiration is a process by which consumers obtain energy from the chemical bond in food. Now what is chemical bond? It's found in organic molecules like sugar are broken down to release energy as ATP. Chemical energy is converted into kinetic energy and heat, and maximally it occurs in mitochondria. Now, the respiratory substance. The organic substances which are oxidized in cellular respiration for releasing energy are called respiratory substance. As carbohydrate, glucose, sucrose, starch, glycogen, sucrose, fats. When carbohydrates are strongest, fat are used to respiratory source. Protein used as respiratory substrate under starvation. Now, details about the respiration. There are two types of respiration. One is aerobic respiration that requires oxygen and another is anaerobic respiration that does not require oxygen. So aerobic respiration, a type of respiration which is carried on the presence of oxygen by which the oxygen is obtained from air or from water in which is dissolved. Glucose plus oxygen makes carbon dioxide, water and energy. And anaerobic respiration, a type of respiration in which a number of one-celled organisms, including yeast and many forms of bacteria, can carry on in the absence of the oxygen. And the equation is glucose convert to lactic acid plus energy. So here you can see cellular respiration, glucose breaking down by glycolysis without oxygen that forms fermentation and makes lactic acid in animals or ethyl alcohol in plant or fungi. And after glycolysis with oxygen, it does the aerobic respiration, forms acetyl-CoA, then enters to Krebs cycle and the electron transport cycle. So aerobic respiration, what happens to the human life? When we take food, we take chemical energy as carbohydrate, fats and others. We intake the food, it digests and that assimilate by the cells. Cells break down into ATP or the body's energy currency. It does metabolism of our body. The carbon dioxide is exhaled as chemical waste and water is used for the body and heat energy is released to continue the metabolic work of our body. The aerobic respiration can be divided into two parts. One is external respiration and another is internal respiration. The external respiration is called breathing and the internal respiration is called cellular respiration. Actually or mainly the gaseous exchange intake of carbon, oxygen and exhale of carbon dioxide is the main theme of breathing, and cellular respiration means the main respiration uh, point when the food substances breaks into ATP and form kinetic energy from potential energy. So, aerobic respiration requires oxygen, main type of respiration that occurs in most situations in plant and animals, involves complete breakdown of glucose back to carbon dioxide and water. Stages of aerobic respiration. There are four stages. One is glycolysis, another is preparation for citric acid cycle or acetyl-CoA formation, the Krebs cycle, and the electron transport chain. Where does the aerobic respiration take place? The glycolysis occurs in the cytoplasm, link reaction, and Krebs cycle on the matrix of mitochondria, and electron transport chain takes place in the inner membrane of the mitochondria. So the first step, glycolysis. It is the process in which one molecule of glucose is broken down to two molecules of pyruvic acid. So here we can see that glycolysis, one molecule of glucose breaking down to 3 carbon 2 molecule of pyruvic acid. It occurs in cytoplasm and 4 ATP and 2 NADH are produced by this pathway of process and a net gain of 2 ATP per mole of glucose. So this is the glycolysis process. Glucose broken down to pyruvate. It happens in cytosol and 2 ATP is net gained. Then the second step, the acetyl-CoA formation. Each molecule of pyruvic acid produced in glycolysis is transformed into a molecule of 2 carbon acetyl-CoA molecule of carbon dioxide and a molecule of carbon dioxide, a molecule of NADH plus hydrogen ion. So from 2 molecule of pyruvic acid, 2 molecule of acetyl-CoA, 2 molecule of carbon dioxide and 2 molecule of NADH plus H are produced. So this is the formation of acetyl-CoA. Then the next and important part, the Krebs cycle or citric acid cycle. It's named after Sir Hans Krebs, occurs in the mitochondria of a cell. For each turn of the cycle, 3 molecules of carbon dioxide are produced from 1 pyruvic molecules and 5 pairs of hydrogen atoms are removed by coenzymes NAD and FAD. So here we can see the pyruvate are converting to each of pyruvate are converted to 3 molecules of carbon dioxide and 5 pairs of hydrogen ions. Here it is changing to hydrogen ions and forms from per 2 molecule of pyruvic acid we can have 4 carbon dioxide, 2 ATP molecules, 6 NADH molecules and 2 FADH2 molecules. Next, the most important part, the electron transport chain. It occurs in the inner membrane of the mitochondria. Electrons are passed along the chain from one protein to another protein. These are the proteins and the electron passes after one protein to another protein. Electrons drop in energy as they go down the chain and until they end up with the oxygen. This electron drops when they go down the chain and end up with the help of oxygen. 38 ATP are produced during this stage. And after this chemiosmosis happens, what is chemiosmosis? Involves in the pumping of protons through special channels in the membrane of mitochondria from the inner to the outer component. Here is the chemiosmosis. When the protons go through the ATP synthase, then the chemiosmosis happens. is the movement of ion across a selectively permeable membrane down their electrochemical gradients, and it forms ADP to inorganic phosphate, or oxidative phosphorylation happens and forms ATP. That is the electron transport chain. Protein to protein transfer of hydrogen ions, and these ions go to the ATP synthase and forms ATP, and that is the net product for our power gain. That is the total pathway of cellular respiration. So net yields before electron transport cycle: glycolysis, we have 2 ATP and 2 NADH. Pyruvate to acetyl-CoA, we have 2 NADH, and in Krebs cycle, we have 6 NADH, 2 FADH2 or 2 GTP. Energy carriers involved in the aerobic respiration. NADH can store enough energy to make 3 ATP. FADH2 can store enough energy to make 2 ATP. And GTP can store enough energy to make 1 ATP. So what happened here? When you start the process, the first is glycolysis. When the glycolysis happens, it's broken down into pyruvic acid and making 4 ATP, where 2 ATP is used and 2 mole of NADH. And we know 1 mole of NADH can hold up to 3 ATP energy. So here we can have 6 ATP. Again, the acetyl-CoA formation, we have 2 NADH that also can give us energy for making 6 ATP. Then after Krebs cycle, we have 6 NADH, so 6 into 3 is 18 ATP. FADH2 can hold up to energy up to for 2 ATP. Then from 2 FADH2, we can have 2 into 2, 4 ATP making energy. So in total, we can have 34 ATP. And in Krebs cycle, 2 GTP also produced, and we know 1 GTP equal to 1 ATP. So from here we can have 2 more ATPs. So 34 ATPs and 2 ATPs, 36. And in the first cycle, in the first step of glycolysis, we had 2 ATP left and 2 ATP used. So 36 plus 2 equal to total 38 ATP that is produced from per glucose molecule. So this is the ATP production summary. Now we can enjoy a video about respiration process.
How do you turn that bite of food into a chemical that a cell can recognize and use as energy? The first step is altering the food into its component chemical compounds and then getting those molecules into your cells. That process is called digestion. Once inside your cells, the process of turning that bite of food into useful energy by cellular respiration begins. The process of digestion results with carbohydrates and other molecules being removed from the consumed food and transported into the bloodstream. From there, nutrients, like the carbohydrate glucose, will leave the bloodstream through a capillary wall and enter a tissue cell. Once inside the cell, cellular respiration will completely oxidize the glucose molecule, releasing high-energy electrons. The overall goal is to make ATP, a storage form of energy for most cells. Cellular respiration is a 4-stage process that begins with glycolysis. Glycolysis literally means splitting sugars, and it is the first step of cellular respiration, occurring in the cytoplasm of the cell. Glycolysis consists of 2 distinct phases, an energy investment phase and an energy harvesting phase. In the energy investment phase, 2 ATP molecules transfer energy to the glucose molecule, forming a 6-carbon sugar diphosphate molecule. This molecule splits, and the energy harvesting phase begins. During this phase, the 2 3-carbon molecules are converted to pyruvate, and ATP is formed. Glycolysis is a 10-step reaction that involves the activity of multiple enzymes and enzyme assistance. In the process, a net of 2 molecules of ATP, 2 molecules of pyruvate, and 2 high-energy electron-carrying molecules of NADH are produced. When oxygen is present, the pyruvate molecules and NADH enter the mitochondria, and the next stage of cellular respiration begins. The next stage of cellular respiration involves the movement of pyruvate into the mitochondria, where it undergoes oxidation. Each pyruvate molecule is converted into a compound called acetyl-CoA. In the process of pyruvate oxidation, electrons are transferred to NAD, producing NADH, and a carbon is lost, forming carbon dioxide. The next stage is the citric acid cycle, also called the Krebs cycle. Here, acetyl-CoA will bind with a starting compound called oxaloacetate, and through a series of enzymatic redox reactions, all carbons, hydrogens, and oxygens in pyruvate ultimately end up as carbon dioxide and water. The pathway is called a cycle because oxaloacetate is the starting and ending compound of the pathway. For every glucose that enters glycolysis, the cycle completes twice, once for each molecule of pyruvate that entered the mitochondria. During pyruvate oxidation and the citric acid cycle, a net of 8 NADH, 2 FADH2, 2 ATP, and 6 CO2 are produced for each glucose molecule. In order to understand how the majority of the energy is produced by aerobic respiration, we need to follow the NADH and FADH2 molecules to the next stage, the electron transport chain. The electron transport chain is a series of membrane-bound carriers in the mitochondria that pass electrons from one to another. As the electrons are transferred between the membrane proteins, the cell is able to capture energy and use it to produce ATP molecules. Proteins in the chain pump hydrogen ions across a membrane. When the hydrogen ions flow back across the membrane through an ATP synthase complex, ATP is synthesized by the enzyme ATP synthase. Oxygen acts as the terminal electron acceptor. By accepting electrons, oxygen is reduced to form water, a byproduct of the electron transport chain. All the high-energy electron carriers from the previous stages of cellular respiration bring their electrons into the chain. From this, the bulk of ATP from the entirety of cellular respiration is produced, a net of 32 to 36 ATP. In summary, we have seen how the 4 stages of cellular respiration are responsible for converting the energy found in the glucose molecule into ATP, the energy battery of the cell. On average, 36 ATP molecules are produced per glucose molecule that entered the cell. In the process of producing ATP, oxygen is brought in from the bloodstream to be the final electron acceptor in the electron transport chain, and the carbon dioxide that is produced as a byproduct is released. The goal of cellular respiration is to transfer the energy from the food that we eat daily into ATP that our bodies can use. This process starts with the eating of a snack or meal and ends with capturing the energy from the complete breakdown of the nutrients into energy.
So, hope this video will help you to understand the process properly. Now some questions for evaluation. In which metabolic processes are molecules broken down to produce carbon dioxide and water? Option photosynthesis, cellular respiration, homeostasis, fermentation, and the answer is cellular respiration. What is the overall purpose to cellular respiration? And the answer is to make ATP. Now it's time for your homework. Today's homework is draw the aerobic respiration process that is on your textbook, figure number 4.06. After completing your homework, you can capture a photo of it and upload to comment box and I would check it out. So it was all for today. Hope this class will help you to understand the respiration process. Thank you for today. Stay home, stay safe.